What's up, YouTube? What's happening? What's going on? We are in a new month. As a matter of fact, what's today? Tuesday. We're at the beginning of. Wait a minute. We're at the beginning of the week. At the time of the recording of this video, depending on when you're watching it, it's a Tuesday. No, it's a Monday. It's July 4th. That's what it is. It's just the beginning of a week, beginning of a month, beginning of a week, beginning of a month, beginning of the third quarter, and the beginning of the second half of 2022. All new beginnings. You know what that means for you and for me? New beginnings. We can wipe the slate clean of whatever has happened these past 6 months, this past 3 months, last week, and yesterday. We can wipe the slate clean. You hear me? You understand what I'm saying? Wipe the slate clean, and we can start anew, start fresh. And I think we should do that. We're going to clear our mind, and we're going to move and forge forward. Agreed? You agree with me? I knew you would. Okay, let's talk about rehire eligibility. My client actually brought this up inside of our private community. And I said, you know what? I'm going to do a video about it. So here you go. Because I know you're watching because you told me you're going to have your notification bell on. So here you go. So let's talk about it. So every company has, or they should have, a rehire eligibility policy. An employer should always think from the standpoint, if I have to defend the fact that I'm hiring a person, if I have to defend that in front of a judge or EEOC, then I should have a well-documented policy that I have followed. So this is the mindset of an employer, or it should be, that you have to defend yourself against discrimination. That's what I was trying to say earlier. Those are the thoughts. So with that being the thought, there should be, again, a well-defined, clearly outlined rehire eligibility policy. I'll give you 2 examples. I worked for one company, and they had a very meticulous rehire policy. Here's how it went. You had to fill out this form, and on the one side of the form, you had to put down what the person's name, where they worked, like what business unit, what their title was, what their salary band was, what their last performance review was, who their manager was, the dates that they worked, the reason that they left. On the other side, you do the same thing about where they want to work, what the title is, what the business unit is, what the salary, what you want to pay them, and all of that. You had to do that. Then you had to send it to one person for them to make sure that their resume, you had to upload a resume too, make sure that their resume matched with the job description that you wanted to hire them into, right? That person checked that out, right? And it was like, okay, good. They are fit for the job. Then it went to another person and they had to check the rehire eligibility status. So it would literally take beyond a week, right? Just to see if the person could literally apply to the role. That was one company. Another company, it was like that. You just looked it up in the database, you put the person's name in, and it would say hire or rehire eligible. It would say rehire eligible or rehire ineligible. That's what it would say. Now, the question that came up from my client was, what if your the person that you directly reported to put something bad or derogatory in your file? How do you address that? Again, as I stated in the beginning, the company should have a clearly defined policy in place that would go against that for you being discriminated against. So the only reason that you wouldn't be eligible for rehire is if you did not fit the criteria of the role, if you maybe don't have, not a fit, don't have the qualifications, if you were deemed a person that's what I'm trying to say, performance review was below expectations. All of this, again, should be above board and spelled out. So if you want to apply, some things to think about are, how long has the span of time been before you were working in that company? So if you've been gone for 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, think about that, because if you've been gone for 20 years, right, a lot has probably changed. The leadership, the culture, the business unit, the scope of work that you want to do, I'm sure it has changed, right? Hopefully, right? That they've evolved and kept up with the times, right? So the skills that you have currently may not align to what they do now. But just say, let's say, well, you say, well, Kelly, I've only been gone a year. Well, then if you're deemed rehire eligible, then it should be an easy transition. But if not, and you feel as if you've been discriminated against, you can definitely take that up with your the labor people. The name is escaping me right now, right? The labor people. You can definitely, I can't think of the word I'm trying to think of, but you know what I'm saying. You can definitely have a conversation with the EEOC if you think you've been discriminated due to gender, age, race, all those things that fall up under the EEOC. You can definitely share that with them, because of the fact that you've only been gone for 12 months, if that be the case, and you've done the work, you looked at the job description, you compared your skills to the JD, and listen, I used to work for this person that's hiring, and I haven't even been invited in for an interview. I left in good standings, and you met all of the criteria. Again, you have access to that rehire eligibility criteria. You have access to that. So I would have that in front of you. Make sure that you meet that. If there is a mark or something on your file, then you can ask about that. You can ask for them to share, why aren't you eligible for rehire? And if you don't get a response, and if it doesn't make sense, again, you take that up with your labor people, and definitely find out, because you want to know, right? That's something you definitely want to know. So, in conclusion, I would say, when thinking about rehire eligibility, if you become aware that they've hired someone else, like, let me back up. Let me say this. So let's say you were let go due to a layoff or COVID or a reorganization, restructuring, or something to that effect, right? That is a voluntary layoff. That's a voluntary termination, right? It's involuntary term. I'm thinking it is coming out quicker than it should. Involuntary termination. So the company lets you go. That's involuntary. You involuntarily left that company due to, again, if it was COVID, if it was layoff, it was a restructuring, that wasn't your fault, right? So then we know that you're automatically eligible for rehire because you did not leave voluntarily. That's cut and dry, right? Now you go and apply based off of that. And you know that the person you used to work for, the person in that position now that's doing the hiring, hired their best friend. You have a case. You have something that you can take to the EEOC and say, hey, here's, I was let go. Here's my resume. Here's the job description. Here's who got hired. And I applied. Right now. So that's if you were involuntarily terminated. If you left, right, you resigned, then that becomes a more, they're going to look at that with more scrutiny, I should say, right? Why did this person, were they a good worker in the first place? They're going to look at your performance review. Did they perform on a high level, or at least meets? That's when it can become a little sticky, because they can put that in your file based off your performance review, your performance review, it goes in detail. It should, I should say, in detail about why you received that rating. It should be It'll, how it categorizes different sections on your performance review, and you get a rating for each one, and you tally that up, and based off that tally, you get that meets or exceeds or below. This is what it should be based off of. If somebody just randomly, like your old boss don't like you and they put so-and-so in there, if you, excuse me, if you didn't respond to it, right? Respond to the fact that your employer or your the person you're directly reporting to wrote some comments, you should have had an opportunity to respond to those comments. And you put in there, I don't agree, I disagree, and you added an additional notes to it, additional documents to that. All of that should be available because they will take a look at that. Hopefully that's clear. I know it's kind of all over, but hopefully that's clear. So you want to make sure that even if you're working now, you address all of this. And even if you're looking for employment right now, ask about their rehire policy. Ask about the criteria, and what that looks like. Ask about all of that, and ask about your performance review. Like, what does that entire process look like? Because that's important. You want to know what the process looks like. When is it? How often do you provide feedback? These are all things you want to know, and we'll do another video about that when you're going into a new employer, things to ask and things to consider when going inside. So hopefully this was helpful. I start thinking real fast and then it comes out. It comes out. But yeah, I used to do, what are those called? Unemployment claims. I don't even remember the company, but I would have to go down to the unemployment office, and there was a mediator and the people that left, and then me on the other side of the table. And I would have, what was it called? DO9 form. Somebody out there in the HR world, y'all know what I'm talking about. It's not the I-9 form. It was a DO something, fancy term, but it was this document that they had to complete. I had that, and then I would bring the file with me. And before, of course, I did all my, my studying and all of that, and I could think, but I would tally how many, and I won most of them. It was maybe a couple of them I didn't, but yeah, so I remember those days. But yeah, always have your stuff in a row. And here's the thing. Here's another thing. Because you're an employee, you don't think about these things happening. So you don't address them in the beginning, or you don't think about when you're going through your performance review. I think I told a story on here before remember I told the story, if you look back in one of my videos, I was talking about my boss that was intimidated by me. I'll put it up here if you want to review that. But in there, I talked about how he had to come to me and tell me that I was getting a 0.01% performance review. And I was just like numb. And I was just like, whatever. He didn't have any paperwork. He didn't have anything, right? That was my fault. I mean, I should have addressed that, because who knows what's in my file over there? Who knows? I wouldn't be surprised if there was something in there. I would not be surprised, because like I said, there was nothing documented, but I should have addressed it because it's my file. So same to you, you want to make sure where you are now that you address it. Sometimes we let our emotions kind of dictate some of our actions, and then we suffer the repercussions later. So make sure that if you're at work and you have the performance review or just a feedback review, that you are addressing certain things that you're not comfortable with, because it can go into a file. You never know who's going to look at it later, and you never know if you want to come back if things may change. So at any rate, hopefully this was helpful. Let me know what you think in the comments. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you hit the notification bell. I go live every Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time as well. And I'll see you next time.